My dear students, we are discussing different components of an interviewing process. So, next one is explain the job. This is a very important and a critical component of an interviewing. The interviewer must explain the key aspect of the job and where that job fits in the overall organizational hierarchy. This should be done without overselling the job. Sometimes the interviewer tries to oversell the job to the candidate, and the candidate considers the job very lucrative, very interesting, but this is not always the case. So it is not a good idea to oversell the job to the candidate. The employment condition for the company must need to be explained to the candidate because if only leads to later dissatisfaction and makes people more likely to quit. This concept is called as realistic job preview. That if you would tell something very extraordinary about a job to the candidate would like to accept the offer, but later on it may lead to the dissatisfaction and it more likely to quit the job in the organization. So this is not a good idea to oversell the job and not giving the realistic job preview to the candidate. To make a decision, my dear student, the candidates needs accurate information about the job. So that every bit and piece of the job need to be explained in a proper way. It need to be realistic, and the organization and terms and conditions must need to be explained in full. It is better to give something written to the candidate so the candidate consider that what are the different terms and conditions of this particular job in the organization. So whether this job is better for me or it is not suitable for me. So it would be easy for the candidate to make decision based on the information provided by you after an interviewing process. So the interviewer should always ask candidates if they have any question or need any more information. So this must be the last question in the interview so that the candidate can be confident to ask anything related to the job, because such kind of information may help the candidate to make the employment decision. Selection is a two-way process, my dear student. Sometimes some people consider that it is a one-way process and only the interviewer or the company need to make a selection decision. Yes, selection decision can be done by the company, but it is actually an employment decision. It is a two-way process. Sometimes the decisions can be made by the candidate whether he is interested to join the job or he is not interested to join the job. So it should not be overestimated that candidates are not interested to tell you anything. Because the concept of a selection decision implies a one-way decision-making process. Only one-way decision-making process in which most of the time interviewer need to make the decision, in which organizations evaluate candidates and make decision about who will be accepted or rejected. But in reality, this is a two-way decision-making process exists in which candidates are involved in decision-making as well. A candidate, if offered a job, has a right to accept or reject it. So maybe sometime the company is very much interested to hire the candidate, but candidate is not satisfied to be the part of your organization. So that's why it is a two-way process, and selection decision need to be made by the candidate and by the interviewer as well. Then next is closing the interview. This is another very important component of an interview, that how to close the interview. Closing the interview should be done in a friendly way, because you are just closing and you have to enhance your employment branding image. So better to be friendly with the candidate. If the applicant is clearly not the person in the interviewer is seeking, they should be told tactfully that what would be the decision and how they would make the decision later on. So the interviewer should say when the applicant may expect to hear from the company. So it is very much important to ask from the candidate about the selection decision. The public relation aspect of the employment interview can never be ignored, because you are not only the interviewer, and if you are not making a decision in the favor of the candidate, it doesn't mean that everything gone. No, it is a company and it has an employment branding image. So the public relation aspect of the interview should not be ignored even when you are closing the interview. So those responsible for recruiting need to be aware that they represent a window into the organization. So they are the organizational representative, and they need to behave very good and in a very friendly way to the interviewee. As consequences of this, they are in a position to either greatly enhance or diminish the company's public image. So whether you are accepting the candidate or rejecting the candidate, that is another very separate thing. But you need to close it in a wonderful way, so it may enhance the image, or it may diminish the company's public relation image just by making a very minute mistake at the end of the interview process.